Good day, strategy gamers, and welcome back to episode 30 of our Let's Play series, Stalingrad to Berlin. In this episode, we're going to be going over the ground combat phase of turn 16, and in episode 31, we'll wrap up the turn and introduce a mechanic or two. You may note that we are not currently in the air execution phase. As we did in the previous two episodes, I have skipped past that as the weather is still not to our benefit, and I found we have a lot of action going on our front lines with the current leader, so I think it's probably best that we use that time instead to focus on our ground combat turns. Forecast for next turn also shows more heavy snowfall across our front lines, so unlikely that this turn or next turn we're going to see any serious air execution. However, it is worth noting in the top right, turn 16 is already March 4th of 1943, so certainly we're not weeks away, but maybe a couple months away from spring and the beginning of summer for Russia. So hopefully that does improve shortly. Let's get right into it though. We'll start up north near Leningrad. And you can see here, as we expected and saw in the previous two episodes, the German forces have been moving a lot of their men around, and this has created many opportunities for us to press our advantage and break through in key strategic areas. And as I will keep reiterating, our focus is not necessarily to take a random hex or two. When we push through and try to create an opening on the front, is trying to force the Germans to respond to that action and let us widen the front to use our numerical superiority to break through as much as possible. And we see that directly south of Leningrad, these three hexes, they have pulled back units, right? So all three of these are not nearly as strong as they were the turn previous. So we're actually going to try to break through in these two hexes. And again, I have a suspicion that this is the very beginning of the Germans withdrawing their forces from Leningrad and Army Group North to try to defend against our push towards Riga. So I think we're making some great progress, and we are many turns away from seeing all of that come to fruition. But literally hundreds of thousands of men in Army Group North here for the Germans that they would have to move. So it's good progress. We're going to start right here in this hex where there is the 10th Luftwaffe Field Division. And we're going to take our 136 Rifle Division as part of the 67th Army. I'm actually going to see if there's not a support unit we can assign to it to help with this task we're about to give to it. We're going to assign the 86th Separate Tank Battalion, I think. And we're just going to have just the Rifle Division see if it can't break through here. So we got 2-to-1 odds. So they were unsuccessful. So I think what we're going to do now is we're going to take our stacks here and try to break through in this hex, which again we have 2-to-1 odds. They retreated, so we were successful there. And then I think we're going to take our rifle corps that we have here, and we're going to try to push these guys back. And they routed. Excellent. So now you see we've taken these two hexes to the south of Leningrad. And as a result of that, we're actually going to move up some of our forces here. Trying to think of, you know what we'll do is actually we're going to take the 56th Rifle Division and move them there. And I think we might leave all of those units right where they're at. We don't have enough movement to move those guys there. So what we'll do is we'll take the, let's take the 372nd. Oh, that's going to exhaust them if we move them. So we're going to have to do the 294th. Going to move them up here. Very good. So now, look at how much this widens the front. Instead of having to defend 2 hexes there, now they have a front of 3 they have to defend. and it's going to allow us in the following turn to maybe break through in this hex. Let's actually see what the math is if we do attack there. Yeah, so it's just 1-to-1 now, but in the future I think we're going to have a better opportunity there. Looking over here, we see another area right away where we can probably push through, and we'd actually beaten them back in this hex in the previous turn, but they've brought in reinforcements. So we're going to take our stack again here, and we have 2-to-1, so we're going to go ahead and attack. And they managed to hold, which, okay, fair enough. Now what we will do is debating if we actually, yeah, let's bring something up to maybe help here. So these rifle divisions maybe we'll bring up and have them make another crack at it. So we're going to move back this rifle division. And we'll move back this rifle division, I think. You don't have enough movement. But you two do. So have you come up here. And then let's have them attack once more. Well, they held again. Fair enough. It was only 1-to-1, but I was hoping with a second attack that might have been enough to push through. But, alright, so status quo remains there. We'll continue to look further down the front line, but I think we will just preemptively move up the 256 Rifle Division here to be ready for the next turn. Going down here, we probably don't have enough to break through in this hex. We're going to be a little short of 2-to-1. Yeah, it's just 1-to-1. Down here, they're still pretty well dug in. But then we get to Lake Ilmen. And look at this. Just as we anticipated, we took this hex in the previous turn. Just as we anticipated, we now have, because they have to defend 2 hexes instead of 1, they've split their forces. And we're going to take this entire stack and we're going to try to push through here. 2-to-1. They both retreated. See? Great news. Just more great news. And then I think what we will do... Oh, you don't have enough to get down there? What if we move you back? And we're going to do a bit of that shuffle on down. Very well. Okay. Alright, so more progress there. And then when we look south of Lake Ilmen, again, we've had a very successful breakout here. And we're going to continue with that push. And first I want to try to knock out this unit. So I think we will just take the 274th by itself. No, let's take the whole stack and we're going to try to push through here. That's 3-to-1. So all 3 of them retreated, including the 2nd Panzer. So that is excellent news. And then we're going to try and push through here, I think, which is 3-to-1 almost. Oh, so there was an infantry division committed to the defense, so that's probably going to mean they hold. Yep, and they did. Alright. So now what we have to do is... we're going to get a couple of these units off the front. Right, so we're moving them back there. We're going to bring up the 215th and 16th Guard. We're going to try attacking again. And they all retreated. So very successful. We're going to move back the 369th. Going to move up the 359th. And I think we're going to take the 375th can come up here. The 182nd can come up here. Just trying to get some of the stronger units to the front here. These guards units maybe? I think that might make sense. And let's see if we can't push through there. A little better than 2-to-1. Let's go for it. They held. Okay. What happens if we try again with... No, we don't have enough there. Can we maybe pull... Who can we pull back a little here? So let's see if we can get the 182nd there. View there. We get that guards unit down again. What about now? Yep, let's try it. We're gonna push. They held again. Okay. We have been very aggressive on this front, but it is paying dividends. So I really am okay with it. Looking at that there, we're at... Yes, we're at about 6, so that should be plenty to hold off here. And I don't think they're going to be in a counter-attacking position next turn. So we should be fine. I do want to note, I think they had counterattacked. Yeah, they did counterattack in this one hex during their ground phase. Let's just see here. So they took the SS Panzer Corps, and really they weren't very successful. Better than 2-to-1 losses for us, and they outnumbered us 2-to-1. So I think we can be pretty happy with that result when it was their turn. Looking down the line, it actually looks like they've reinforced here this gap where it's more of the swampland that we really have not been interested in. So I'm really happy that they've brought forces down here to defend this line, because I really didn't have any intention in pushing here. So the fact that they've moved units here just means these are forces that aren't defending a more critical area like south of Ilmen. So that's great news. When we look down here closer to Adritsa, we see that they have actually brought up some forces, especially in a bit of our northern spearhead here, as we are trying to break through. They've brought up some more forces than they had previously. And looking at the lines, we have enough certainly to hold our position defensively. Not that hex, though. That hex needs to be reinforced, which we can handle that. We'll bring up maybe this 23rd Guards. And then that should give us enough now to hold it. That puts us at, yeah, about 17 versus their 23. So that's perfectly fine. And then over here, do we actually maybe have an opportunity? So we're going to take this 101st Brigade and move them back. And we're going to move up the 7th Guards. And I'm wondering if we don't have an opportunity to attack with these two stacks here. That is 3-to-1. I think we're going to do it. And they retreat it. So that's good news. Just that rifle division we'd back. Here's a rifle division. I really haven't had an interest in going over this rough terrain. But I'm wondering if we don't just take this hex at the very least to limit ourselves from being attacked from all flanks as we push down this road, right? So I think I might move up into that hex. That just puts a little more pressure on them as well. So we'll hold that line now. So not enough to necessarily push through, which we don't have an interest in. But now we don't open ourselves up towards being completely overwhelmed in this hex as we move towards the west. So good outcomes here. Very, very happy with how all of this is going. You can just sit back and probably just rest a little. You look a little weary. TOE is actually fine. Let's see here. And we find ourselves, this is another example, right, where really they've brought in a lot of reinforcements, and in the previous turn, we had actually broken out all the way down to here. We'd really stretched ourselves with, I think it was actually this mechanized unit. Let's see. So that is the 46th Mechanized Brigade. Let's see if that's the same that was pushed back. No, the 31st Rifle Brigade was pushed back. Okay. Yes, we took very heavy losses there, and I think we had known we really pushed ourselves maybe a little too far. But that's okay. We're going to now, I think, take Which one do we want to do? I think we're going to take the 8th Rifle Corps and have them push this unit back 3-1. They rout it. So that's good. And then I think we're going to take these 2 stacks and push back this unit. This is 2-1. So they retreated as well. So that's good news. Then I think we're going to take this... I want to do it. I'm going to move back this 8th Guards. We're going to move up the 5th, I think. Here we have this mechanized corps, and I don't think I want to move them up next to... Yeah, this is that LAH SS Panzergrenadier Division. And you see here, this was another one of our spearheads where we really broke through in the previous turn, right? We had retreated back to actually hold this line right here. And then in the previous turn, we managed to stretch all the way down here. So that was a very good outcome for us. And I was very fearful they were going to counterattack. This tank corps was the 5th Army reinforcements that we had actually produced a couple of turns ago, probably 4 or 6 episodes ago. And we had brought them up to the front. And I sat there cursing myself because I remember sitting there saying, yeah, these guys are in Moscow, we'll bring them up to the front, we'll let them sit in the reserve for a couple of turns, and we'll let them get themselves all situated, build up combat prep, lower fatigue. And what did I do 2 episodes ago? I had them blitz right into the front line and make themselves vulnerable. So now we actually are going to let them just hold that position. And we're actually even going to take, we're going to pick the unit that is highest fatigued and lowest supply, and that's the 2nd Tank Corps, I'd probably say. We're actually going to move them back here to the town. And I want to take, I think, the 948th Rifle Division and just move them up. And that's really going to help with our defensive position for this hex. I mean, actually, we're still a little outnumbered looking at those odds, but we'll be okay, I think. And I'm debating if we want to move up these units to this hex this turn or not. I think we might take even the 20th Tank Corps and move them back too. And then we're going to take the 352nd and move them up. I think that makes sense. Their combat prep is a little higher, but their fatigue is still at 36. Gonna move up our artillery here. And then I think we will take maybe that rifle corps and move them up. And then let's take this rifle division and move them there. So that's given us plenty of defensive value then to hold that hex. This mechanized unit. I think we will move them up. And we'll also add this rifle division. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. These guys desperately need a bit of a resupply, so we're going to let them hold back another turn or so. Over here, we had brought up elements of what is now going to be the 1st Tank Army. And we're now going to unload them from the train. And we have them over here as well. The HQ unit was at least. Let's see where the depot is. Depot is in this hex. So we want to... We have 2 HQs there. Well, this is very illogical of me. So we're going to move the Tank Corps there. Tank Corps there. Rifle Division there. And we're going to move up all of our HQ units to the town where the depot is. Right, so there's all of our HQs now. Take them off the train as well. Going to move them up here to the city, because that actually does help with their attrition due to the difficult weather that we are faced with. And up here we have another element of the 1st Tank Army. I think we might continue their journey on the rail down south. We will bring them up to this hex. and then we will unload them. And then let's see if we can't move them up here. We can. So move them up. Do we have other elements of the first tank army sitting around? I don't think so. I think that was the entirety of it. So now we really are going to let those guys actually sit for a turn or two before we use them to break out. But certainly you can see there's going to be some opportunity along our front line to push towards Adritsa. And this is just so tempting looking at this map, right? Because they're, at the very least, we do not have recon. There is fog of war. We do not have recon on any units right now between us and Adritsa. And we had set that as our target back in turn 14, I believe it was. So we're now, it was probably earlier, like 12 or 13. But our target was first we take Adritsa, right? And then when we zoom out a little, we're going to follow this rail line that moves almost exactly east to west all the way to Riga. So first is Adritsa, and then will be Rezekny. And this one will be a little more difficult because there are not major roads that connect that city. There's also some geography that's going to help them defend their southern flank. So this one is going to be more difficult. But then once we get to Rezekny, then I think we're just going to continue on to maybe I should just be pointing at the hexes. That might be less embarrassing. Krustpils, and then Ogre, and then over to Riga. Right? We're just following this chain of towns all the way to the west to Riga. And when we get to Riga, hopefully it means we have cut off the entire army group north. If they do if we do break out and if they do manage to start collapsing their front, then at the very least we've forced them out of all of these hexes without having to really have a tough, bloody battle for them. And it also means that even if they start collapsing their entire army group north and try to get a defensive line around Riga, fact is they can't withdraw everyone at once. They will have to leave units behind to defend their withdrawal. So it's a win-win for us as long as we can keep that advance up towards Riga. And then when we get to Riga, it really allows us to push strongly on East Prussia with Königsberg. So looking forward to that campaign as well. Moving right along, though, along the front here, we probably have an opportunity in this hex. If these... I'm almost of the mind that this turn we do hold on this. So we have enough for a 4-1 right now. Maybe I take that rifle division. What's the defensive values here? Yeah, defense is fine. So I'm going to take this rifle division. And this is just 2-1. Let's give it a try. They held. Okay. And what happens if we take the 352nd and the 23rd Tank Corps in attack? It's 2-1 again. They retreated. Okay. So that was successful. Up here, there's the tank corps that are all resting up a little bit. Continuing to hold our current positions here as we have for much of the game. Actually, the entirety of the game. We have not moved these units. They have stayed right here. This has been their home for 6 months. These hexes right here. And they had reinforced these the previous turn a little. It appears they have now taken those forces, and it looks like this is what we are seeing here, I believe, is their last-ditch stand to try to defend Smolensk. Because you look at this, they've brought up these motorized divisions, probably in a last... It's probably all they had available that could make it in time to Smolensk to defend it. I think if we get really, really lucky here, we might be able to break through this turn even towards Smolensk, but I don't know what they're going to have in the city itself. So regardless, we probably will find ourselves doing an encirclement, even if we break through this turn. First, let's see if we don't have any battles to recap, and look, we do. So for some reason, they focused very, very strongly on pushing us back here, which I'm a little confused by, but let's look at these results. So the Panzer Corps, the 1st Infantry Division, first attacked us with 10,000 men. We managed to hold just fine, no issues there. then they actually decided to throw the 20 Corps at us with the 58th Infantry Division. Again, not any issues. I mean, we actually had numbers out here of 1 to 1.4. And then we look at their third attack, where they threw a Mountain Division and the 58th Infantry Division at us. And it was just too much. And it wasn't necessarily that we suffered too many casualties and our TOE got too low. It is more so a situation likely of just morale and fatigue that pushed these guys back. So let's actually see what unit that was as the 145th Rifle Division. Yeah, and now when we look at the 145th Rifle Division, I mean, supplies not great, actually, and ammunition was down to 36%, so that might have had quite a bit to do with it, the fact ammunition was down to 36%. And TOE is not awful, but certainly they lost a number of the SMG squads, artillery wasn't great, anti-tank guns weren't great. A lot of the support units were really a lot worse off. And it's important to note that you can have bad battle results, not necessarily because, hey, your average TOE, your morale, the top line number is not always reflective of what will happen in the battle, right? So there may be situations where disproportionately, let's just say there was a scenario where this rifle division, their rifle squads were at like 15%. But you know what, their mortars and their AT guns and their artillery and all of that were up near 100. Right? It might tip the balance of the total TOE looking okay, but looking at the detail, that might be then in a position where they just couldn't hold the line anymore. So that detail really does become important sometimes. So they were pushed back. They threw a lot of forces at us. Again, don't fully understand it. Back here, they also pushed where we had advanced with the 134th and the 93rd Rifle Division. And here you see they only did one attack because they just right off the bat threw, looks like a total of 3 infantry divisions at us. And the only disappointing thing really from these results was that we did lose 74 gun placements. If it wasn't for that number, I wouldn't even bat an eye at this. And still, it's not that terribly important, but that is quite a few gun fixtures to have lost just in the one battle. So yeah, anyways, what we're going to do now is go through our entire line and see if we can't break through here to get north of Smolensk. And then we will look south of Smolensk, and then we'll look to see how we can get through in the center. So right off the bat, we're going to just actually ignore this hex. I don't actually care about taking this hex. So we're going to take this entire stack and have them attack here, which should be plenty to push them back. Yep, they rout it. So that was a success. And here they have a total of 33 for defensive value, and it's mostly that one motorized division. So I know I just said we're going to go north of Smolensk, but let's actually see what happens when we press on this one unit right here. So let's take this entire stack and have them attack. That's 2 to 1. They retreat it. Okay. And then let's take like the 6 tank corps and move them up. Okay. We can't go any further with them. What about that mechanized? Can they go further? No. We have back here the 9th Tank Corps. They cannot go further. 5th Guards. Oh, can you take Smolensk? 5th Guards. Take Smolensk. We took Smolensk. Victory! We didn't even need to encircle the city. We took Smolensk. Wow, this is like Rostov all over again. I was more excited about Rostov, I'll admit that. Smolensk was just an eventuality here. But look at this. I am utterly stunned. Honestly, I'm shocked that they did not have at least like one infantry division in Smolensk. Because having to take a city can be very difficult sometimes. I mean, really, a lot of times the only answer is to encircle the city. So I am just shocked that they did not defend the actual hex the city is in. So let's now see first off, right, are there other units we can get down there to help defend the city? I think we already checked the 9th tank corps. We did. Okay. Well, let's then just... And we don't have enough to get up there. I want to get some infantry moved up on the line. What about the 17th Guard? You would be exhausted if you went there. Let's move up. I want to spend time thinking about this because too many times in this series have I rushed a decision and then that has ended up hurting us. I think... I think I'm just going to take the rest of this stack and move them up. So that stack now has... call it 35 at least defensive value. And if they attack with both these forces, that of course means we're perfectly fine. So I think then we will just kind of do a bit of a shuffle effect here where we start moving all of these units up. We'll bring these guys over to fill in this hole here. You can come... You can actually make it down there, huh? So maybe we focus on that for a moment. So let's take the strongest units here. So like this 326 we're going to move down. And then we're going to take this 17th Guard and move them down. Okay. And then we will take the... I think 17th Rifle Division and move them down. Okay. So we don't have enough to break through in either of these hexes, but we could break through right here. So let's take these two stacks and force them back. That's 3 to 1. Okay. So that's one less division they have on the front. Again, they really brought in some of the mechanized forces here. So here we actually have the 9th Panzer. We're not going to be able to break through and take this, but we have to look at situations like this where our defensive value is even just rounding up a 4 in this hex, and their offensive value is 45. Here's a similar situation where it's 3.9, right? So we have to start looking to try to reinforce some of these hexes. So let's focus on that for a moment. Like this 3rd Guard, I think we'll move down there. The 312th Rifle Division we can move down. So I mean, it's not some impenetrable force, but now at the very least it's 12 defensive value. And I think we'll take you, and we're going to put pressure on this side. So now what we'll actually do is I think we'll counterattack here. This is 2 to 1. Okay, so they held. So with them holding, I wonder if we don't... Because it'd be really nice if we only have to defend against these two hexes. I think we're going to try and actually push them back here. We're going to attack again 2 to 1. They were all retreated. Okay, good. Because does that mean these guys are now weakened? Yes, right? They have 3 less defensive value than they did before. But no matter what, they were going to be outnumbered 3 to 1 if all 3 of these hexes attacked. Heck, even if just these 2 hexes attacked, regardless of what we did, they would have been outnumbered 3 to 1. So what we want to do instead is, instead of just holding the line and hoping for the best, by attacking here and pushing them back, and moving up to this hex, I might add, right, we force them to make decisions other than counterattacking us. Because if they now use these forces to try to counterattack us, it means we get another turn to keep pushing in this entire open gap in their line and get in around behind them. Right? I would love it if these guys counterattacked, pushed back this hex, and then we just brought a new stack of units in to fill the line and continued moving in around them. Actually, what I don't want them to do is to take these 2 stacks of units and spread them out and build a defensive line that we have to try to break through. That's what I don't want, honestly. And I think that this has put some good pressure on them now where we probably are going to find ourselves doing just fine here. And I think we may even take... Yeah, we're gonna... I was jumping ahead here to things we might do over here. But what I want to do is take a look at some of our HQ units that we have here, because we have gotten a little far up on the line. So let's actually move this HQ unit up here. These two rifle divisions have now lost all their fatigue and have full combat prep. So we're going to take them off refit, and we're going to move them up to the front. Yeah, let's put them right there. And you have your HQ over here, so you are certainly out of range. That worries me a little. Your defense value in that hex is still 42, so we're just going to have to leave you, I think. And I don't want to take my HQs off these depots, honestly. So that's that. Let's see where everyone's getting their supplies from. Oh, well, that's a little interesting. So most of these are from this hex. Most of these are from this hex, and almost none of them are from this depot. And I think I know why. So these numbers are the kind of depot priority, right? And it then determines the flow and kind of what the last depot is that's going to be sending out all the units. And this depot, I think, is looking at the connection back to... Yeah, so this depot is being supplied from Moscow, right? So is this depot. This depot is being supplied from Rzhev. No, maybe this isn't the answer, because looking at it, it would appear that the depot itself... Ah, there it is, the tooltip. Yeah, it received 6,000, stored 5,000, so it just didn't... So it only sent out 775 tons of supply. Okay. But then if we look down here, received 12,000 tons of supply, sent out 6,666, and we won't read too much into that number, I guess. Up here, yeah, sent out 6,000 tons of supply. So this one just wasn't shipping out, so we'll maybe take a look at that in a future episode on some of the mechanics behind it. But I think what I will do then is I'm going to take this HQ at least. I'm going to move them down here, since these units are obviously being supplied by this HQ, and they're on the front, and we need them to get supply, right? So we'll go ahead and do that. Looking at the rail lines here, we've moved a lot of our rail repair units over towards the Stalingrad front, because it's the priority, so there's no complaints about it. But it is a bit slow going here to get some of these rails repaired, and we might actually transfer one of the units from the Stalingrad front in the next turn or two, because once we take Smolensk, that's really going to open it up where along our push out to Adritsa and Smolensk, we really need some of those rail lines repaired, those additional hexes, so something for us to consider. We have units back here that I think we can actually move up in advance. It's like, let's take these two units here. We're going to move them up into this hex. And we'll also take this 29th Guard up here. Right. So, I don't think they're going to counterattack, but it just continues to put pressure on them. Here we can take... We're going to take the rifle division, move them up. Move up the brigade here. And then I actually think we're going to take one of the brigades here. We're going to take all of these, and we're actually going to build them up, because we don't need all these different brigades there. So we're just going to build them up to a core. And then maybe what we might actually do then. So by doing that, it really kind of depleted their total TOE. We're going to send them back to the HQ. And we're going to put them on refit status. There you go. I think that'll go quite well. We're just going to leave them there. Looking down here, further south of the line, I think, so defensively here, we could probably just use one more unit in there. But I think I want to expand the line. And I think I'm going to move... I'm going to move you there. And you have 22 defense, which is more than enough to handle that situation. I'm going to take the 146 rifle, move you there. You have 8.4, more than enough to handle that unit. And then I actually think I'm going to take you, because now we have more options to push through behind. You belong to the 3rd Tank Army. Boy, we really pushed forward here. My goodness. And they look like they're getting ready for a counterattack, honestly. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to pull back these units. Is what we're going to do. See that it's... Did we get anything by having this one hex right here, like of strategic importance or even tactical importance? Did we get anything by having that one hex? No. Do they get something by just completely shattering 3 of our tank cores from 4 directions by staying there? Yeah, they get a lot from that. That then means we have 3 tank core units that we just have to, we don't even have available on the front. But by pulling them back, now we can lower their fatigue. They're not at risk of being utterly destroyed. And then we can use them in a more tactical approach. Right? That's how you deal against this type of stuff. Staying here and dying on this hill and being martyrs about it wouldn't have achieved anything. Absolutely nothing. And actually, I want to look here. So, yeah. So that rail line is completely damaged. So even if they move back in, they have to get a rail repair unit up there to get it back into an operational level. So we're going to take the 48th Guard, move them over here. And they've focused all their forces here. So what are we going to do? Well, we're just going to attack on their side over here, 2-1. So they held the first attack. So then we're going to bring up... Did they counterattack here? Let's actually take a look at this. So they did counterattack here in the previous turn with the Panzer Corps with 3 infantry divisions, 30,000 men. Pretty much 1-to-1 odds. Look at this tank battle that happened, actually. So we eliminated almost all of their armored fighting vehicles when they attacked. All of their Stugs, pretty much, we got rid of. And in exchange, we lost a bunch of T-60s light tanks, T-34 medium tanks, and Su-122s. I don't think we've talked about Su-122s yet. If memory serves correctly, they were a SP gun. In a sense, almost similar to the Stug 3. I think the gun was of slightly higher caliber. But maybe we can actually just look that up and be sure. So let's go back here to the movement mode. Put one of you up and go to your TOE, and we should be able to find it here. That's not what I wanted. I wanted elements. Don't see them there. Let's try the 15th. Su-122. Yeah, assault gun. And a 122 millimeter. Yeah. So rate of fire 4, accuracy 550 versus armor value of 120. Wonder good way to compare that to the Stug. Might have to look that up because I don't know how to get that screen up off the top of my head. Let's maybe do losses. Can I get to it from here? Oh, these aren't links to click on. No, okay. Well, I'll do some research on how to get to that. Anyways, it was nice seeing SU-122s make it to the front and see some action. And taking out all of their stugs in that group was very satisfying. Back to the point, though, I think what we're going to do is move up this unit here. And we do have a bit of a gap in the line. I remember what we were doing. I saw a shiny, I saw a squirrel, and I got all distracted. I was checking because I wanted to see if they had attacked and pushed us back in these 2 hexes last turn. But it actually looks like this was something that happened 2 turns ago. And in the previous turn, we had skipped past this and just let these guys sit in the reserve. And I think it makes sense looking at it. I'm glad I agree with my previous decision. Actually, it looks like the German forces used to occupy this hex, and they abandoned it. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. So I'm going to take the 323rd Rifle Division and move them up here. And we're going to counterattack here again 2-1, and they retreat at this time. So that was a success. Over here, defensive value of 13, so they're more than enough to handle these 3 hexes as long as they don't bring in, say, a Panzer Division to help with the counterattack. Then I think what we will do is I think we will move into this hex. Yeah, there you go. Did they counterattack over here? No, but here they did. And the Rifle Division retreated. Looked like a bit of a fair fight, but it was 3-1. The Motorized Division was just better equipped. I'm going to take this Rifle Division, go back and capture this town that apparently we lost from a counterattack. I'm assuming that what probably ended up happening was one of their armor elements had moved up to try to do a almost recon in force, right? Let's see. Did they damage the rail line? They did. So you see, that was very clever of them. That was very smart, because what that's done now is this east-west line is inactive, which means any freight that wants to go from here to here would have to go up and around through Tula. So that was very clever of them. So we're just going to keep that infantry brigade there for now, I think. Over here we have plenty to hold the line, it looks like. Yep, so that's fine. Down here, so this was where we were pushed back. Don't know if we want to move back there with maybe like the... So now we're getting into Orel, which is a good note to make. You don't look like you're doing so hot. Not too bad. 73 for rifles. I think we might just... There's a road there, though. And that road would be useful to us. Let's see where the depot is. So all these units are being supplied from this hex where HQs are, which means this north-south road actually doesn't really matter. The only area in which I think it would matter would maybe be resupplying this stack here. And I'm not too worried about them, because the trucks that travel between the unit and the depot would use this road to traverse across, excuse me. So let's instead bring up this rifle division here. And we're going to take this stack. We're going to counterattack here. They rout it. Good. So that was a good outcome. And then what happens if we take this rifle division, move them up, and move up this rifle division again? Yeah, so I think that's a much better situation against the 22nd Panzer there. They might come down here and now attack our unit here instead, but even then they only have 2-1. We certainly have a strong line defending with these two hexes. I mean, we have plenty in defense. Although our defensive value actually isn't as high as I thought it'd be. We're only sitting at like 15. So that kind of sucks. And we're facing up against what is effectively combat value of 50. So they have really brought in the hammer over here in Orel. They really don't want to lose Orel. Which like, think about this too, right? So this is how impactful quick breakouts along a line can be effective against your opponent. Is look at this defense they've been holding up against Orel. We've been in this hex now for about 4 or 5 turns, and we haven't been able to take the city. Compared to Smolensk, where we captured it in just a couple of turns of pushing, and they really, even if they hadn't left the city itself empty, you can clearly see in a couple of turns we would have had the city surrounded, it looks like. So they've been much more successful in defending Orel. Now, of course, we had brought up a ton of reinforcements from the Moscow Defense Force. I think we're going to take maybe some of these rifle divisions here. And we're going to kind of reallocate. And then let's take this 5th Guards and move you over. We're going to do one more up here. This rifle division can come here. There we go. I think that's better. Now we can start filling in the line over here. We continue to be very well off in our status just outside the city. So I think we'll do the same thing we did last time and take the 9th Guards and attack this hex just as we did last time. That should push them back. Yep, they retreated again. So they're taking heavy losses every time we do that compared to us losing next to nothing. So I wonder, is this maybe the turn that we move into that hex? So where's our defensive value really coming from with this stack? It's coming from the 9th Guard rifle, which is what I would kind of expect. What if we were to take the 357th? Can you make it up there? Doesn't look like you can. Let's start by moving up this rifle brigade. Then we're going to go back and see if that changed anything. Oh, that doesn't change it. I kind of want to move up into this hex. Yeah. We're going to move up there. Okay. All right. So Orel pretty much has stayed as defensive as it was. South of Orel we have here, call it 23, 24 defensive value, which really should be enough to defend against these 2 units. They might have 2 to 1. Might have 2 to 1. And then here, we've really kind of stayed the same where we're sitting at about 30, which again is enough to deal against these 2 units. There's really this one hex here where they might have a chance of breaking through, but I don't think they're going to weaken themselves just to do that. The Das Reich SS Panzer Grenadier Division is definitely the greatest threat. And then over on this side, it's the Wicken SS Panzer Grenadier Division and the Totenkopf SS Panzer Grenadier Division. And we're going to now reinforce this line. So we moved up this brigade, and I don't want to just leave them all by themselves. So that should be enough to hold off anything from there. And then do we take up this rifle division and this rifle division? I think we do. So that's 6. That's not quite what I wanted. So we need to move something over here. I think we'll move over this guards unit. Yeah, so now they have enough to defend themselves probably against a counterattack there. And really don't have anywhere else we can push through. I just saw this. Yeah, we don't have enough movement, but this hex being empty is so tempting, right, to try to cut that line. But this is good. This has been a lot of progress this turn. A lot of progress. It's great to see, too. Look at this. Our supply situation is looking really good here. This is just a matter of time before the weight of our numbers do successfully push through all the way. And by getting into this hex, Now, instead of defending the 1 hex, what happens? They have to defend 2. So great moves there. And I actually think that, as we did previously, right at Orel is probably where we're going to cut off this episode and close it out. We're just under an hour. And really, I do like to try to keep each episode right at about an hour or less. Less is always nice. The last turn 15, I think, ended up at 2 hours and 20 minutes, which is quite a bit, but we had a lot to work through. Hopefully, south of here, our front goes a little more quickly, and we can still get to a new mechanic or two in the next episode. And we certainly need to look at our theater boxes before we close out turn 16. So we're going to finish up here. Thanks so much, everyone, for giving the video and the series a watch and a listen. As always, appreciate your support. Should you have any questions or comments or feedback for me or the series, please leave them in the comments section below, and I will do my best to address them. And as always, strategy gamers, have yourselves a great day. Bye now.